Booyah! We're back.
We did it. A bit of sound dramas, but we made
And
it.
we're in the same time zone.
Welcome back to Topia. We did it.
Oh,
Yeah.
mate.
And
Always feels like coming home.
it does. It does. I've been looking forward to this
Oh, bloody oath.
all week. All week. And tell me, what's been happening? Any Black Creek updates?
Nothing at this stage. I've always got my ear to the ground on that one.
Yeah.
So as always, as soon as I hear anything, you'll be fully informed. But I mean, these things take the time that they take, um, and but hopefully not too long.
Two things. Firstly, you know how you say keep your ear to the ground. Has that got something to do with the cowboys when, the American Indians would want to listen to something that put their ear on the ground, you know?
Yeah, well, without knowing all the ins and outs, that's the first I heard of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember that classic scene from Stand By Me
Yeah.
when they're heading across the bridge and to try and hear for the train. He kept putting his ear to the one of the
Metal.
rails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as I'm aware, that's where it comes from.
And
But
secondly,
don't take that as gospel.
yeah. Secondly, are you wearing a Fred Flintstone shirt?
Well, I feel that the Topia is very important, and I feel that one should look professional for these sort of events.
Well, Fred Flintstone's very professional.
Oh, of course,
Have you seen
especially in what was it, Moose Lodge or something?
Have you seen those early episodes of Fred, the Flintstones when they're like, promoting cigarettes and they're all
Yeah, they did ads for them for God's sake.
the kids and they're all puffing away. These are great cigarettes. And yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah, with extra tar for flavor.
yeah, yeah.
What
Extra
the
time
fuck?
flavor. Get your
Well,
mum
look
and
how
dad
much was
to
preserved in those tar pits that they were smoking.
get your mum and dad to buy you some extra tar cigarettes. And that
Yeah, all the cool kids are doing it. You don't want to look you want to look cool, don't you, Timmy?
so Black Creek still a coming, ear to the
Still
ground.
coming.
Yep,
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see which hits first, the graphic novel or the Blu-rays or anything like that.
yep.
If anyone is playing at home and you want to draw up a chart to place bets or anything,
Yep.
please feel free. Of course, the Topia gets 10% of that action. But it'll be interesting to see which hits first, and yeah, we'll hear it here first.
And what else? We've been speaking a bit. We both clicked on and watched the Australian version of The Office. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm pretty keen to talk about that because it feels as though it's a hot topic right now, you know. But before we jump into the Aussie version, I thought maybe we could do a little bit of a butter up warm up, turn the oven on, get it hot, talk about The Office, the British version and the American version. And, so like without, jumping on and researching it,
Hmm.
it was the early 2000s. The Pommy version came out first. Um,
Yeah.
and
I'll be the first to admit I haven't actually watched the English version.
yep,
I've made it through the American one. I'm very familiar with the players, at least the sort of the writers and such for the UK version,
but you must
with
have
Ricky Gervais
seen,
and Stephen Merchant.
even without seeing it back to back, whatever, you must have seen episodes and scenes, and you must know about it, right?
Oh yeah, I know of it. I think I became aware, uh, probably aware of the US version first.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I had seen that picture of Ricky Gervais that's
Yeah.
synonymous with the UK office,
Yep. Yep.
um,
Well,
and
that
it's
that made him, didn't it? That
Oh,
show made
yeah,
Rick.
that was a slingshot for a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, well,
co-writer
well,
Steve.
what was it a slingshot? I kind of think what I can't remember all their names, but Ricky is the boss, and
Mm,
got the skinny guy, that kisses his
the
ass.
the
Yeah,
yeah, if it's who I'm thinking of, it's Stephen Merchant, the 6'7", uh, googly-eyed comedian. It's just
yeah.
all sorts of awesome.
But I think he was bigger than Ricky, like more accomplished when that came out. Was it?
Oh, right.
You know?
I'm not quite sure. I need to check some timelines because there was um a movie and TV series that Stephen Merchant did uh, as he quickly types in with his hunting and pecking.
Yep. And
But
also,
I think it came after The Office.
yeah, okay, all right. So maybe it was his big thing, but do you know what I mean? Like the other two, the Office was really about the love story between, the what were their names that sat opposite each other, whatever their name.
Like I said, well, yeah, like I said, I actually haven't seen the
Well,
UK
I have, and I
Office,
can't
which
remember names, but like it was meant to be about this love story, but somehow Ricky stole the show, and
right,
he was that, you know, he made everybody cringe that much
yeah,
watching The Office that people were like, oh my God, like imagine working there, imagine dealing with this, and and people could relate because so many
yeah,
people have worked
and
with.
it's a very difficult. There's a very fine line that you have to walk with that, where you make them definitely cringeworthy, but not so far that you actually put people off
Yeah,
watching.
yeah,
There
yeah.
always has to be this undercurrent of sympathy somewhere for the character, or they just don't go too far into the cringe side because you can't have them just as a completely despicable character or cringy character. Otherwise, people just won't come back.
Won't come back,
But
but they did come back, and that
yeah,
show really has
I
stood the
mean,
test of
hats off to them for that. That's
hats off to them. Yep.
yeah, that's a very difficult thing to pull off.
Yep. And they did, and it was, it's the car crash you can't look away from. And
Yeah.
here it is.
And especially when you know where it's going, but you
Yeah.
still, again, can't look away.
And
There's always that part of you that just wants to see how bad it's going to get.
I don't know exactly how many seasons the British Office has, but I do know that the American version had more, you know,
Yeah, I think from memory, there were 7 seasons, 5 or 7 seasons
of the American.
of the American one,
And I remember
and
I asked our mate Rich, I said, which, which is more successful, which is more popular, and he was like,
mm,
well, the American had more seasons, so, does that mean that one is, or that was his reason. He said the American one is because it's had more seasons. But here I am asking you now, just because
mm.
one has had more seasons, does that mean it is more successful? And technically, it had
Uh,
bigger actors, more successful actors in it as well.
well, some of them certainly went on to become incredibly successful.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Carell was already this was he was established, but this was certainly something that pushed him
Oh, but he
further
was
along.
established. He was big. He was the biggest
Yeah,
actor ever, in there, in that
yeah.
bucket.
Uh, uh, Krasinski definitely got a huge boost from
Yeah.
this, and it's gone on to some great things.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Jack Ryan series, and
Off the hook.
acting and directing in that horror movie series. Remember it now, Silence or
Oh,
something like that.
but Jack Ryan, how good is Jack?
Oh
Like I
yeah,
only I
and
only recently watched that, and it
oh
is
right.
sensational. I remember I always wanted to watch it. Always wanted to.
Yeah,
Um, Particularly because I knew that he went to Venezuela in the second season. And
yeah,
you know how there's these seasons that you want to watch, but for some reason you don't even have a reason why. For some reason, whenever you're ready to start watching a new television series, you just forget about it. It's just not in your
yeah,
brain. You need to write this down. But I only smashed that recently, Jack Ryan. What a bloody that just so good.
yeah,
Anyway, we're talking about The Office. So
yeah.
here I
So
am.
which is more successful and that sort of thing? Um, while you can certainly show that it's certainly a measurement of success having more seasons, but um, I'm not sure if you can entirely uh, equate the way the US TV does it and the way that the English TV does it.
Yeah,
Um, and I mean, English TV, normally 6 to 8 episodes, and that's a whole season of television.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas in the US, it's anywhere from 20 odd to 26 makes a season.
Yeah,
Um,
it's bigger, it's longer, it's cornier, you know, and there's more of them, because
yeah, again, it stuck to the American style of number of episodes per season.
yeah,
But I think in the end, that's probably something for the historians, although that is what we do here as well. But I think I'd more measure it in just the fan base for each of them,
yeah,
and I think this is a one of the rare examples where it's one of the times that the US has seen a TV series that is successful and has said, "Oh yeah, we're going to grab that and we'll just
yeah,
we'll do it better."
yeah, yeah.
And this time, it seems like they did.
Well, I
When
disagree. I disagree because I've seen them
but
both. I think the
this
British one
I
is
did say
better.
seams. I
Yeah.
did say seams, and like I said, I haven't actually watched the English version yet. So, which one is better? I'll hold judgment, but I will say that uh, it's one of the most, if not the most successful UK to US transplant of a series
Yeah, it
because
worked.
so many of them
Worked.
fail, and I think some of the main factors of that is they don't whoever these American producers are that want to bring it over, they don't really get what makes those English series or Australian series or South American series what actually really makes them successful. They don't see the heart of them.
Yep.
But this one was a very successful transplant.
Yep.
Um, so much better than I think Red Dwarf actually had two US pilots
Yep.
trying to establish an American Red Dwarf series, even keeping the original Crichton, Robert Llewellyn, and
Yep.
both failed.
Both failed. Yeah. Yeah.
And you look at an Aussie transplant, they tried to do Kath and Kim over in the States.
They did?
And
Did
yeah,
they? Really? What did they call
oh
it?
yeah.
What did they call it?
Set in New York, I think from memory, where, none of the bogan humor coming through, no Aussie humor really. I mean, I watched about 3 minutes, I think, of the first episode and just said, yeah, yeah, nah, nah,
I didn't even know that. Well, okay.
yeah.
Well, look, it doesn't matter. Like, actually, someone at my work even said, "Oh, my daughter prefers the American one than the British one." Like, and it's just implying that the British one is better. And who the fact is, they both were good. You know,
Yeah,
really good.
brilliant.
And here we are in
Yep.
2024. We haven't had an episode of The Office in how many years? 15 years? Like a
Been a
long,
while.
yeah, it's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
long time. And suddenly, out of nowhere,
I didn't even
Australian
hear
Office, the Australian
any,
Office. Yeah,
yeah, I didn't even hear any, whispers or anything until about a month before it hit.
yeah,
That
yeah,
suddenly now we're going to get an Australian office. And like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, you know what? I'm reserving judgment. Let's see what we get out of this.
I mean, should it have happened 15 years ago? Maybe, but like it. I would rather something late than never, you know. And
Yeah.
and I clicked on it. So I watched it with my missus, and she hasn't seen either. She hasn't seen the
Ah.
British one or the American one. And I think most of the critics or most of the people now, because you look on Rotten Tomatoes, it's kind of funny. Did you have a look at Rotten Tomatoes? What
No, I hadn't.
Okay, well, I've got it up now. If I just, watch this. If I just go The Office Australia, um, and hit Rotten Tomatoes, I find this interesting. Look at that. So 64%
Wow.
say it's good, the critics,
Yeah.
the audience score is really low at 39.
Yeah.
That does happen. So that's okay, not quite,
Well, yeah.
but significantly different. So the average punter is not liking it. The average critic is liking it. Um, and but I tell you, all of those people will be comparing it to the
Mm.
shows before. All of them will be. There
Yeah.
will be so
Which,
few people out there that haven't seen either, like my missus. So few.
yeah. And look, it's always inevitable when you do a different version of something that people will compare it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You
I
can't
think
help it.
it's
Yep.
Yeah, but I think it's vitally important when you first go in, you
Mm.
need to go in with as much of a blank slate as possible,
Yeah.
because you need to take it on its own merits.
Yeah.
It's not a very easy thing to do. I had a good friend once that was going into a remake of a movie. I can't even remember at the moment which movie it was, but I said to him, "You can't go in watching it as the movie goes through, comparing, trying to look at, shot for shot
Yep.
for the original movie because you're just not going to enjoy yourself."
Yep.
And I talked to him a little while afterwards, and he said, for the first 20 minutes, I was hating the movie. All I was doing was comparing, oh, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, this is terrible. They did this better in the first one. And he said about 20 minutes in, he remembered what I said and tried to, clear his mind
Yep.
and just enjoy it for what it was. And he said after that, he actually started enjoying the movie
Yeah. Yeah.
because you've got to try and take it on its own merits first. You can always compare later on.
And if you compare everything to something so good that has
Yeah.
stood the test of time 25 years ago, nothing's going to be good. Do you know what I
No.
mean? Like,
And
like
a
seriously,
lot of the time,
that's
you
everything.
also have it where you've also built up this series
Yeah. Yeah.
in your own head where it might be quite a while since you've actually gone back for a rewatch.
Yeah.
So you're holding it on this pedestal that even, what you're comparing it to doesn't live up to anymore.
Exactly. Like if you were to watch it again, like I know what you're kind of saying there. You're implying that, you forget a show's flaws after so long.
Mm.
Right?
Especially that first season,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it takes a while. You look at shows like The Office, you look at Seinfeld, Friends, things like that, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Uh, you remember the in jokes. You remember the chemistry
And you
between
remember the
characters. You remember
feeling. You
yeah,
remember the feeling,
the story arcs
right?
and things like that.
Yeah.
None of them had that in the first season.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had to build on that.
Yep.
So when you come in and you're watching the first few episodes of a brand new series, you need to remember first, try not to compare it.
Yep.
But second, it's its first season.
Yep.
It's still finding its legs.
Yep. Yep. Um, so having said that, watching it with my missus, The Office, I, couldn't help, I'm like, okay, clear the mind. Let's not compare it. And
Yeah,
I was watching it and laughing, and
yeah,
I was watching it laughing and really enjoying it. And so was my missus. And I'm like, this is funny. This is
yeah.
really good. And you are comparing character to character. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the boss.
Because okay, so that's Jim.
Yeah,
This is yeah,
you are. And I think the new boss was really good. You know,
oh,
I really like
she
it.
does that cringe so well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and it's not. I mean, Steve, like I said, I haven't seen the English one,
Yep.
but I've got a lot of respect for the comedic chops of Ricky Gervais.
Yep.
Uh, but I remember quite well Steve Carell so brilliantly walked that line of the cringe and, you know, hiding underneath that the sympathetic character.
Yep. I thought
Um,
she was even more Ricky Gervais than,
oh, right.
yeah, I thought she was more like Ricky even. Um,
Well, that makes sense. I mean, Aussie humor in TV shows is closer to the UK than it is to the US.
and yes, definitely. And also it definitely had its Australian flair to it.
Oh,
We've got
yeah.
Melbourne Cup next week. I haven't seen all the
Yeah.
episodes. And they,
And
they
she
had
puts
the
the hat on
Melbourne,
and everything.
yeah, they had the Melbourne Cup episode.
Yeah.
You been, have you worked in an office on Melbourne Cup Day?
Yeah. I have. And it's some even in the same workplace when you work there long enough, some Melbourne Cup days are a little different than the others. But there's always it's always the same. There's people that no, I don't follow the Melbourne Cup,
Yeah,
and then it gets about half an hour before, and they're throwing money into
yeah.
the betting ring and everything. Or you've got the local expert that has memorized everything, but you get that
Yeah.
vibe that he just studied everything last night. You get all the different characters.
And the sweeps, you know how he had the sweeps
Yeah,
and everybody's picking their horses and so that happened, mate. That happened.
yeah. Oh, it was
Yeah.
it was spot on.
Yeah, spot on. It
Uh,
it really was good. And dressing up, and
oh
dressing
yeah, but
and
she took.
and getting too wasted, you know?
Oh,
How many of us have
it's
worked a day in because in Melbourne, right?
it's a
Um,
it's a holiday.
holiday, you know.
Yeah,
And that's actually what's better about, being in Sydney. Now right now my work that, the Melbourne Cup is not a thing, where I work now. But where I worked before, it was a huge thing. People went in
yeah,
and they got there at 9 o'clock. They fucked around for an hour and then got wasted. And I tell you,
yeah,
by the time 3 o'clock or 3:05, where that race happened, people were tanked. And you'd have
yeah,
the lunch to be talking. I mean, I'd rather do that. I'd rather get paid and get booze and food and, chips, dips,
I think
candy.
there's a lot of jobs out there that should be done with a two-drink minimum.
Yeah. And so I guess maybe it was just me, but I could really relate to that show,
Yeah,
having worked in an office. But kind of work in an office now, but more so in my past, I was like, oh yeah, we've had that. Set in Parramatta. I
yeah,
didn't know it was set in Parramatta till I kind of worked it out. I saw the river and I put a few two and two together. I- you know, um, a real office in Parramatta now, um, it definitely would be a bit more, you know, Asian and Lebanese and than that office that we saw,
mm.
or am I wrong? Am I wrong? Is that you know?
Well, just going from friends that live out that area and that
Yeah,
sort of thing, I can certainly say that it'd be you know more like that.
yeah.
Um, it's
you know, but
I mean,
it
as
still
far as we
works,
can
right?
say is two white guys from the North Shore sitting here talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And another thing too,
Whoops.
it's
But
criticized
yeah,
a lot. The office got criticized a lot because, now it's a woman boss. Ooh, and I'm like,
really,
yeah,
because I
really?
haven't read
Oh, I
any
told
of
you
the
about that.
feedback or anything for the Aussie Office, but
Yeah.
really, we're going the all female.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's a female boss.
The
Yeah.
weep for the children of the future. But I mean, really, I mean,
And
where I
I
work at
really
the
like,
moment, certainly not going to say where. Uh, all the management above me, immediately above me, are women, and
yeah,
yeah, it was like what? It's
yeah.
like I mean, they
But
came up with this
will
sort of
they
thing
get
when
as drunk on Melbourne Cup Day next week, Lee? That's the question. Will they get it? There,
um
there was one kind of, it's kind of funny. Like when I watch the Aussie shows, I love watching Aussie shows. And say I was watching King of the Cross. And if I say to myself, is that good acting? Then it isn't good acting. Do you know what I mean? That didn't make much sense. Oh, 10 minutes.
if it seems like so even if it seems like acting, then obviously it's not the best acting.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to say to myself, if I question, is that good acting? That means I've learnt to know that that isn't that good acting. Do you know?
All right.
Like I don't say to myself, like if you're watching something and you don't even question that, then
Because you're
obviously.
so immersed in the show.
But if you
Yeah.
question, is that good acting, then it's not. Um, and the couple that have that love chemistry. Um, you know, I if there's some if there's two characters that I didn't buy,
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that. I did.
Well, I watched the first sort of four or five or six episodes, and once and yeah, you try, like I said, you try to go in without comparison, but
Yeah,
especially with this sort of a show where there's such defined characters,
yeah, it's hard.
because like I said, we've had the English, we've had the American, and it's not. There's very few shows I think that have this sort of dynamic there.
Yeah,
Where I mean, there was no English version of Friends or Seinfeld
yeah,
before the Yanks
yeah,
did it. They just did it,
yeah, yeah,
and you can't really look to English and American versions of reality TV shows because that's just apples and oranges.
yeah,
So of course you're going to go in, especially if this is the third iteration. Okay, so that's the Jim character, that's the Dwight character, that's the this character. And that okay, so Jim normally ends up with her and that sort of thing. Uh, but when you sort of try to push that aside, and you just sort of let it come at you as it does,
mm,
that's when you can start to see the actual chemistry that they have there without your superimposing, various aspects there.
mm,
And I could see, because when I was watching this, um, I was taking into account that this is the first season. It's just starting,
yeah,
and I could see them sort of feeling their way through, finding their flow.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I definitely think that they're moving in the right direction with that,
yeah,
which is great. Um, and I did get a bit of, at least for myself, a bit of a vibe that I think they're still trying to find out how much Australian we can put in
yeah,
to the show. I think they did very well with the Melbourne Cup episode because what's more Australian? There's very few things more Australian than the uh, yeah,
race
this
that stops the
yeah
nation.
Melbourne Cup.
Yeah,
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 the
it's a
race
race
that
that stops
stops
the
the
nation.
nation.
Yeah, yeah,
But I was sort of looking for more, the little things here and there. And I think they're just sort of still finding a way, not in any sort of bad way or anything, but just trying to find out where does the Australianness come
yeah,
through?
yeah,
And as the episodes went on, I could feel more of a just an organic flow of the Australianness
yeah,
coming
yeah,
out. Like for the IT guy, this whole, coming from Woy Woy.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, that's such fuck, he's coming from Woy Woy down to Parramatta. Jesus, I wouldn't wish that commute on anybody.
Oh, but people do
Um,
it, mate. People do it heaps. Of people do it every
ah,
day. You know.
Back when I worked for one of the major Aussie telecommunication companies that worked at out at Macquarie Park, not mentioning any names, the amount of friends that came down from the Central Coast
Yeah,
was amazing.
yeah,
And just uh, I've travelled that drive on good days when it's not peak hour and shit like that. And yeah, but here we have just and not any fanfare before it's said. It's just this whole working from home and coming back into the office again.
yeah,
And he just goes, I drove in from Woy Woy today.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, I kind of thought that worked a bit too, the whole coming
Mm.
back to the office after COVID. I really thought that,
Oh, fuck yes.
no, because it's happened to quite a lot of people that okay, all right, you can work from home as much as you want now, and but we've turned now, and people are like, no, 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 you've got to come back in, got to
Uh,
come back into
I,
the office now.
and I
Yeah,
think a lot of that was coming from people that didn't work from home or, they're at a certain echelon above. Because I remember reading a few articles where they're saying, oh, now that we're getting out of it, everyone has to start coming back to the
yeah,
office because
yeah,
of this or that or
yeah,
the other.
yeah,
And it sounded like people that, you know, all these opinions coming from people that never worked in the trenches,
yeah,
that,
yeah,
had to, come in from Woy Woy
yeah.
into the bloody city. Um, and it really seemed when these articles started to come out, and pressure from real upper echelon in some of these businesses,
Mm.
it just felt so forced with bullshit.
Yeah, yeah,
We don't want you working from home where now you're comfortable and sure your productivity went up a bit, but no, we need you in office and accountable.
yeah.
And if anything, all this working from home through COVID proved it can work.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, not everyone's suited to working from home. And with you know, with few exceptions, if it's someone obviously lives far too far away, like where I'm at the moment, we're working 2 days in office and 3 days at home, and it works brilliantly.
Yeah,
We get the benefits of working from home, but we still get a couple of days of the social side of work and everything of working in the office.
yeah, yeah,
And it works
yeah.
until you get a certain manager that, likes her people too much and demands everyone to be in office.
Oh, and I bet there'd be hundreds of places like that, hundreds of them.
Well, we're filming one in Parramatta, but it, it's I think everything's it's all about striking a balance and seeing what works
Yeah,
for which business, which people. But I did love that how they kicked like you said, they kicked off the series with this whole where everyone's going to go remote.
yeah,
It's like what?
yeah,
I love my people and my people love me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I really loved The Office Australia, um, and I really hope they do more seasons. Um,
Yeah.
I really hope it works. I've told heaps of people about it, you know, and and uh, could I mean it's gone from Britain to uh, America to Australia. It made me think, where else could it go? Could the next one be New Zealand, or could the next one be Hawaii, or like
Yeah.
where could this go to? And the characters can change, but
Mm.
like it would be nice to see how New Zealand would do this. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I'd actually,
Well, when you look at the format, it's only limited to anywhere that has an office environment.
yeah, yeah, which is
Uh,
everywhere, everywhere,
yeah, exactly. There's pretty much nowhere that couldn't do, well, with very few exceptions, there's nowhere that couldn't do their own office.
and not ridiculously expensive filming and stuff too. And
No,
like,
I mean
actually,
when you look at it, it's at its core, it's a single room play.
it's perfect.
Because it's mainly just the office with a couple of rooms in there. You have the occasional shot to the warehouse or the car park, but
Yep.
apart from that,
Yep.
it's that's that's what it is.
I would love,
And
in 20 years' time, is it going to branch out to other countries?
I
And
mean, Christ, in 20 years' time, we could be seeing Mars, The Office.
yeah, wow. Really? Yeah.
Who knows?
Little
But no,
alien.
it's basically its only limitations are by anywhere that has an awkward office environment, and like you said, it's pretty much everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the stories, there's been things that have happened even down in Antarctica,
Yeah,
because they're a small group of people working in an enclosed environment. Things are going to happen.
mate, we got less than a minute. So just summing it up, we really have just talked a bit about Black Creek.
Ah,
Really, it's all been The Office Australia. I thought this
yeah,
episode, I loved it. You loved it.
yep,
Watch it. Get onto it. You know?
yeah. Please do.